Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Rock, and today we'll be learning about the 12 basic functions from Chapter 1, Section 3. So today's objective is we're going to learn about 3 out of the 12 basic functions and some of their characteristics. Those functions being the absolute value function, the identity function, and the sign function, arguably the most important ones that you will learn. So first of all, what even is a function? A function is a relationship between a set of inputs and a set of outputs, where each function is related to exactly one output. So first, we're going to start with the absolute value function, where f of x is equal to the absolute value of x. In the bottom left corner, you can see an example of the absolute value function, and some of the properties of it are it has a V shape, the vertex is at the origin, aka 0 and 0. The domain is all real numbers, the range is 0 to infinity. It's symmetric on the y-axis, but not on the x-axis, and it is an even function. So now moving over to the right, we have an example of it, um, where you use the equation f of x is equal to a absolute value of x minus h plus k. That is very important for the example because the equation of f of x is equal to the absolute value of x is just the simplest version of it. So here you can see what the values mean. So A is the vertical stretch and compression or reflection. H is the horizontal shift, either left or right, and the K is the vertical shift, whether that being up or down. So yeah, there's an example of the absolute value function. And now we will move on to the identity function, which is the simplest of the functions. So the identity function is very simple. It's f of x equals x. Um, Really, it's just a straight diagonal line at 45 degrees. Um, so some of the characteristics is that it's a linear function. The domain is from negative infinity to infinity. Same thing with the range, negative infinity to infinity. This symmetry, it's an odd function, and it makes a 45-degree angle at the origin, 0, 0. It's very easy to identify. This is the easiest function to learn and to identify when you're learning about the 12 different types of functions. Um, so in the middle, yeah, you can see an example of it. And then to the right, um, that just shows the inputs and the outputs of an identity function. Um, and so on the bottom, it passes through points such as negative 2 and 2, 5 and 5, and 100,000, 100,000. It's always going to pass through a point like 5 or 5 and not like 2 and 1 because it's symmetrical and it's a straight diagonal line. So yeah, that's the identity function. It's pretty easy. So now we're going to move on to one of the harder functions and also one of the most important functions to learn, which is the sign function. So the sign function, um, f of x equals sine of x. So this function has a lot of characteristics. First, it's a wave that repeats every 2 pi. It oscillates between negative 1 and 1. The domain is negative infinity and infinity. The range is negative 1 and 1. The period is 2 pi. The symmetry is an odd function. It starts at the origin, 0, 0. It peaks at pi over 2 and 1, crosses x-axis at pi and 0, dips to 3 pi over 2 and negative 1, and returns to 2 pi 0. Like I said, it repeats every 2 pi. It looks like a smooth wave. It also infinitely repeats on both sides. And the reciprocal sign of x is cosecant of x. So what sine is? It's basically the opposite side over the hypotenuse of a right triangle. Only right triangles, no isosceles or any of the other triangles. It has to be a right triangle. So you can see on the bottom you have that diagram of the right triangle. Um, this also is related to tangent and cosine. Um, which will be discussed at another time. Um, and it's really cool how there's so many real life applications. Among them are pendulum motion, sound waves, radio waves, electromagnetic electromagnetic waves, um, heartbeat monitors. There's really a lot of interesting real life applications of the sine function. And then up in the top left, you can see the sine function graph. This is a really simple one. Um, it can be compressed or expanded, or the period can be greater. Um, so yeah, that is the sine function, the identity function, and the absolute value function. They are really simple to learn, especially the identity function, but it just takes some practice. And yeah, it shouldn't be too bad to learn. With these notes, I tried to make it as easy as possible for anybody to learn what the absolute value of a function is, identity function, and the sine function. So good luck. Thank you.